Was I captain in England on your debut?
Yeah,
Was
2004. Yeah.
And you scored?
You weren't good at kicking then. What John Alomu did for the game of rugby in '95.
For me, it opened rugby to the world.
I still think if he was playing now, he would still be a freaky athlete.
Richie McCaw, New Zealand number 7, absolute legend. Never got a red card, I don't think, in his whole entire career. Like Sam, did you get a red card in your career? We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it.
Where are we going to go?
It's all right, moving on, we'll go.
Next course, please.
Only got
Bill,
one.
please, Bill.
So the chef cooked for you the vinegar sauce with the crispy vegetable.
Merci.
This is lovely.
Vegetarian plates.
It's really nice, thank you.
Merci, monsieur. Thank you very much.
Who is the greatest, like, World Cup player now? Whether you played with them or you played against them. I'm going to kick it off because I just feel there's a couple of people. And I'm going to start with the one that I played with. And I'm going to go straight away to 2003, Johnny Wilkinson. And, you know, when you're surrounded by great players, there's something that sets them apart from great players. And for me, it was just the attention to detail. Because I came in from rugby league into rugby union, didn't know much about the sport. And I can remember there was loads of stuff I was good at, but there was loads of stuff I needed to learn. And I always think, doesn't matter how good you are, just watch other people and see what they're good at. And then when I came into it, and I knew I couldn't kick, and all of a sudden it's like, what is it about this guy? Why is he so good? And it was just, he was out there all the time, 2 hours before training, an hour after training, and just almost obsessive. And I remember just thinking, right, well, if you're going to learn from the best. And I can remember just thinking, right, well, I might as well just, he's staying out for an hour or he's out before training, go with him and just ask him, like, Johnny, like, how do you hold the ball? Like, what are you looking for? And just all those little different pointers. And I can remember doing that, and I mean, at one point, my leg was hanging off. and I just thought, how on earth does he just keep the discipline to just keep going at it and going at it? Because I'm looking at him thinking, you have nailed this. You've nailed it in the first 5 minutes, but he'll stay out there for 2 hours. And then after training, he's got to get it in his head that actually I'm at that right point. And not only that, he's great at kicking, whether it be out of hand for the post, but also his execution. And when have you ever seen a 10? It's very rare you'll ever get a 10 in World Rugby that likes to defend. And he was just like, it doesn't, you know, you could put a highlights reel of Johnny just making big hits because he would just throw himself in and just his attitude, and that was amazing. So I'd go for Johnny as the guy that I've played with. He was amazing.
Did you ever did you get better at kicking though because of him?
You're too right, I did, yeah.
I was going to say that. Were you a better player because of Johnny?
Oh, massively, but him and then other people. And I always remember as well, like, you know, you talk. Sometimes it's easy when you're playing with these guys like week in, week out, and you get used to them and everything. But you know, Bryan as well, as playing against the opposition, there's so many great wingers that I've played against, but quite often they tend to be good at one or a couple of things, you know, so you've got to be fast. And what stood out for me, I mean, Bryan's got records coming out of his ears, but what stood out for me with Bryan, because I think, if I got this right, was I captain in England on your debut?
Yeah,
Was
2004.
Yeah. And you scored. but from, like, you know, from
You
that,
weren't good at kicking then.
No. Well, I realised. No, but I realised if I can run it further than I can kick it, then don't bother kicking it. But you know what I observed from Bryan was it wasn't just that it was fast. Like, there was so much about your game that was quite different to most of the wingers. So it was that you're a poacher. Do you know what I mean? How many times you get an interception? And that's a risky, when you're out in those wider channels, it's such a risky business, because if you come in and you miss it, you're gone. But so many times and it comes with experience as well and confidence, that you would just take that line, come off your wing and just go for that poacher's try. But also, you got to be smart. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? You've got to be smart in the game. You've got to know where to be, tracking back. The work rate for me, I sit and watch wingers now, and I don't know about you, but I know whether he should have been round there supporting, and that try should have been saved because the winger should have been there. Your work rate was phenomenal. Just getting round the corner, try saving tackles. So as a winger, which normal people just say, right, it's all about tries. You could score that. You're a great defender, poacher, work rate. So I'd put you up in that.
Thanks. I mean, that was a price moment. I'm done. Hey guys, I'll play this my round. But just talking about wingers, and I'm extremely humbled by that. I think it's not because I was there in '95, but I think what Jonah Lomu did for the game of rugby in '95 as a 19-year-old youngster that no one had ever seen. He literally became rugby's first ever global superstar. And probably rugby's biggest ever superstar in terms of what he gave to the game. And I'll never forget my dad. I mean, I was sort of in this whole rugby craze, and we went to the All Blacks Hotel in Santon, and you sort of allowed in, and like Jonah was the one guy you want, like everyone sort of was gravitating. It was like just off it, scored the 4 tries, ran over my cat.
And it could have been anybody.
It could have been anybody. It could have been any. But I, to myself, and my brother, like waiting all the time. We got like Sean Fitzpatrick and Zinzan Brooks, and the one guy you're waiting for, like we just never got. And we gone to the bathroom, like literally like the last 3 minutes of us being there, and we're like washing our hands, and this ginormous human being. I mean, I was 12 years old, but Jonah walks into the bathroom, and I'll never forget that moment as a kid, like literally being in greatness and like just not knowing what to say. And he was just so humble. He was the greatest Rugby World Cup player purely just because of what he gave the game. He took rugby to a level where in '96 it became professional. The rugby never really had a global superstar, and I think his humility and how he just attracted new fans to the game, how he broke the mold of what traditional wingers were all about. I mean, 120 kgs, running sub-11, and just bulldozing people. And there have been some great... Johnny was one that I got to play with, but yeah, Jonah for me was...
I'll second that. I would have said Jonah as well. There was a really nice quote when he passed away, which you might remember, and somebody said, they said, we played the game, he changed it. And I thought it was so true. Like, he took rugby from the game it was to the game it's become now. I still think if he was playing now, he would still be a freaky athlete, you know, in this day and age still, 20 years down the line. So he had a PlayStation game when he was 20, his own PlayStation game, named after himself. He made that much of an impact, you know, and I was there playing it. So he was probably the first rugby hero that I had. And similar to you, Brian, I met him, came down to breakfast one day, met him in France, didn't know he was there, he was at the breakfast table. I had to pretend I had to go back up and get more food just to compose myself, because Jonah was on my table. I was like, oh my goodness. I don't get starstruck, but I actually proved myself wrong. I was starstruck seeing him, but single players have had a massive, enormous impact on the game. Jonah Lomu.
You said hero, I would say superhero. For me, I was not watching rugby until 1999. I saw him lose against France. It's my first huge memory, but even losing, he scored 2 times, I think.
He took like 7 French players over the try.
The memory is huge because, the memory is huge because we won New Zealand, but we won Jonah Lomu. It was, for me, it was physically superhero. The story after the career also made him even more important and more admirable because of the disease and how he handled everything. So for me, it's a superhero, and it's the only one I think until now really. Not just.
I've just been brought back.
Sorry, but it was way far
100%.
after rugby, not only rugby. For me, it opened rugby to the world.
100%.
And Johnny, I had the chance of, because I didn't play with or against any player, but I had the chance to meet him in Toulon, and I can't say more than you about the quality and the talent, but the humility, the professionalism, the 100%. Way he treats people, journalists, media. It was like 10 everywhere. You couldn't find anything wrong. What a player and what a man.
We've spoken about we're talking about lots of backs at the moment. Like, if
I was going to jump in.
Do we need some forwards?
We need some forwards. Yeah,
you look at some of the forwards that have graced the world stage, the McCaws, etc.
You've just taken the words out of my mouth. Richie McCaw. And do you know what, Sam? I can't believe you didn't even mention Richie McCaw. I mean, our number 7.
I was going to say Richie as well, but I wanted to give you an opportunity
Thank you. You're saving it
to
for
fight
me.
our corner for the back
He was
rowers.
being very polite.
Oh, do you know, Richie McCaw for me, I guess growing up, I watched him play. That's how I guess I learnt the skills of the trade to be a good 7. I also watched George Smith as well. He was brilliant back in the day for Australia. You know, he's someone who, and he was like sort of had his dreadlocks, just did his thing and just stole the ball at the breakdown.
Those guys made the jackal fashionable.
They did,
They were the first ones.
They started off and everyone's
Yeah.
like, I'm going to follow.
Yeah.
But Richie McCaw, for me, I guess led the way on how to be a master at the breakdown, but how to also be, creative out with the backs. Never got a red card, I don't think, in his whole entire career. Wait, Sam, did you get a red card in your career? We're not going to talk about it. We're not going to talk about it.
We're going to go
Next course, please.
Only got
Bill,
one.
please, Bill. But yeah, for me, Richie McCaw stood out. And actually, I'm also going to mention Chester Williams, actually. He's another one who stood out for me. I guess back in 1995 was the only person of colour in that team, I think. I think, again, just being a role model, someone who's standing out and just leading by example, I think he really did inspire a lot of people back then to sort of follow the way, and obviously he passed away not recently. So I guess there's been few people who stood out, but let's go, I'm going to say Richie McCaw, New Zealand number 7, absolute legend.
Yeah, and you know something, and it's how do you define it, because if you look at somebody like Sergio Prete, 5.
Yeah.
Brian Lima, 5 World Cups. I mean, that's phenomenal. It just to be able to do that. To have this, you think at how hard a World Cup is. The lead up to a World Cup is brutal, and then to do 5 of them, that takes some doing. But
maybe just then you talk about like legends, and I got to play with a phenomenal guy, Ostirant, early 20s in '95 when he won it. And then to do it again with him 12 years later was phenomenal. He became the first African to win a World Cup. But to do it over a 12-year time period, he tried to play 99, missed out on 2003, and came back in 2007. And it was a real rock within the foundations of how we played. Yeah. He obviously didn't train on a Monday, Tuesday. His engine had to be sort of rejigged.
I remember that. I had a few of those in my locker as well.
We all did. But I think you talk about playing at 5 World Cups, and that's phenomenal. But also one of the guys that literally 95 was a hero like Chester Williams in 2007 for us became so important. And you have these phenomenal. It's subjective a lot of the times into how you view and analyse. But I still think it's going to be tough to sort of do what Jonah's done.
Yeah, and I think there's going to be potentially a few to add to the list. There's going to be some new stars born.
Yeah.
So we look forward to it.